Hello, besties. Welcome to Cozy Chats. My name is Randy, and I am a cozy business coach helping chronically exhausted entrepreneurs build a business that works for their body and mind. Today's guest is Lyndsey Hanna, a neurodivergent HR specialist with 15 years experience. And today we're going to talk about setting boundaries as a low energy and neurodivergent entrepreneur to protect yourself and communicate your needs with others. So get cozy and let's chat. Hello. Welcome, Lyndsey. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast. It's so nice to have you here.
I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be awesome.
Yes, I love it. I'm so excited. I love how many people are so excited to come on and chat and share their stories here. It's so great, and it's so wonderful that we all get to find all these connections and help each other in this way. So today we are going to talk about boundaries. I'm so excited about that because I know that it's something that a lot of people really struggle with, and I used to struggle with. I've gotten very jaded, I think, so my boundaries are mostly fuck off now, um, and very strict. But that way of telling people to do it is not always appreciated as much. So I'm excited to talk to somebody who professionally deals with these kind of things.
Yes, indeed. I'm not going to say there isn't a time where we aren't going to get to the everybody fuck off. Like, that is part of the process. But hopefully, we can manage it ahead of time and we don't have to get to the everybody fuck off stage.
Exactly. How do we say it nicely first? And then when they don't listen, we can tell them to fuck off. So, Lyndsey, tell me about your business.
Yeah, so I've been in HR for 15 years, worked in a ton of different industries, and then decided to go out on my own about a year ago. At the beginning of 2025 is when I decided that corporate was no longer for me. And one of the big reasons why I decided corporate was no longer for me was because of corporate's inability to accept my neurodivergence. So in HR, there's this thought process, right, that we have to be a certain way and fit into a certain box and behave like this and talk like this. And I don't do that. I'm the HR girl who says fuck. I'm the one who's going to tell you the 100% truth up front. I don't care if you're the CEO or if you're the dude in the mailroom, you're going to get complete honesty from me at all times. And most senior leaders and businesses were like, ew, I don't want that in my HR person. And it's like, it's funny because now that I'm a consultant, they hire me to tell them the very things that I was willing to tell them as a W-2, but I got fired for doing it as a W-2, but they pay me 3 times as much to tell them the very same thing as a consultant because that makes a ton of sense. Whatever.
Absolutely.
So
Corporate's never made sense. If they started now, that'd be just weird. It would throw us all off.
there are some businesses who get it. And one of the things that I've kind of come into in, I would say, the last year or so, is really accepting my purpose in life. And it scares the shit out of me. But my purpose is to change the world by changing our relationship with work. And it scares the crap out of me. But that's what I was put here to do. And you don't do that by being quiet.
Exactly.
And you don't do that by not telling people the truth. And I think boundaries is a huge, ginormous part of how we change our relationship with work. And it's not just the neurodivergence, right? Neurotypicals can use this too. I think that's the great part about this conversation is there are some tweaks, right, that those of us in the neurospicy space are going to use. But for other folks, a lot of this is going to work for you too. But I think it's really important that we're 100% honest with ourselves in who we are. And I think that's the first thing in boundaries that we have to talk about is you have to acknowledge who you are unashamed, right? You were created by whoever you believe in, however you believe in that story, right? You were created for a purpose and you were created in your neurospicy way on purpose.
Absolutely.
And I believe my neurodivergence is my superpower because I have the ability to look at the world differently than other people. And it's not a disability, it's an ability. I have that special gift to look at the world differently. But part of doing that is that I also have to acknowledge that because I am neurospicy, there are some things about myself that I have to know. So, like, I'll give you a great example, right? We're recording this podcast in the afternoon. I knew I was doing this today. And so I designed my entire day around doing this today. I took a 2-hour nap right before I logged in for this,
Nice.
right? Because I know about myself that I have to monitor my social battery. That's part of one of the things I've learned about myself. I've also learned about myself that I do a lot better in virtual environments with men, and I do better in person with women.
Yeah, that's a really
That's not
interesting
a
one.
that's not a bad thing. It's just that's part of who I am. That's part of the way I was created. And so I think when we talk about boundaries and we talk about how do we, as neurodivergents, how do we make our space in the world, is we have to start by knowing ourselves because we have to know what we need. Because the world can't give us what we need if we don't know what we need first. And we
That
have to
is
be able to ask for it.
Yes, that is so much of what I teach in like building, the mindset and the systems. You have to know you first. You have to know what your limits are. And these are the things that people don't think of as boundaries. Sometimes when we think of boundaries, we think of like, telling people that they have to not do this or setting limits on your time or something like that. We don't always think of our boundaries as being like, I have to manage my schedule and my energy, and I have to manage my space and my environment. And those are the things that are so big for those of us who are neurodivergent. Working in like my office, like I know most people like have so much lights on when they film. I can't do it. I do not like big lights. And that is a strict boundary for me in my environment, is that no big lights are on. I don't care if I'm filming or whatever, and that's the normal thing to do is have natural light, but like I'm fine with that because this is a boundary for my comfort.
Yeah. Normal's for people who need it. Like, and normal is defined by the person, right? So for you, normal is no light. That's totally
Yeah,
cool. I wear this weird trucker looking headset, which looks ridiculous on video, but at the same time, it helps me focus. It helps
yeah.
keep background noise out. Like, same, like you have to find what works for you. And I think one of the things that's really important, doubly so in the entrepreneurial space, but even in the corporate space, is you have to hold yourself accountable first, right? And those of us that are neurospicy, we're not exempt from that, right? We still have to hold ourselves accountable first. And a lot of employees that I've worked with in my HR career that are neurodivergent and come to me and say, Lyndsey, I need help. I said, awesome. I am here to help you. Tell me how I can help you. And they go, my boss sucks. Okay, keep talking.
Change that.
Keep talking. Well, maybe I can, because
Yeah.
maybe what we really need to do is the conversation that that employee is having with me really needs to be had with their boss. Hey, I'm neurospicy, and here are some of the things that don't work for me. Can we make some adjustments? And 99% of people, if you simply ask for what you need, they're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And it's the fact so many people are like, oh, I have to hide my neurodivergence. I can't let people know that shit. No, this is who we are. And at all times, we are always free to be who we are authentically ourselves. And if we're in a space where that doesn't work out, then we need to exit that space. But we should never feel like that we have to hide who we are just because our brains work a little bit differently than the
Yeah.
person next to us.
Yes, I can't wait till the rest of the corporate world and everybody else catches up to this, and just like the fact that we're not all the same, we don't all function the same way, we don't all think the same way. And like, how is that such a hard thing to understand, that we're all unique? But like, that is a huge part of it. And knowing ourselves too, like learning. The biggest thing for me that's helped me adapt my business has been learning more about the neurodivergent side. I've been chronically ill for a very long time. Obviously, I've been neurodivergent for just as long, but like I didn't know it. I didn't understand it. I just thought I was like the weird, quirky kid that had problems making friends and talk too much. And turns out, actually, there's a whole mess of things happening up here. And I had to learn about those things so that I could be able to express those things to the people that I was working with. That's huge.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the folks that I talk to, they have a hard time with the idea that they are responsible for themselves. Like, it's people really struggle with that idea. They, a lot of people are like, Lyndsey, I need you to help me. And I'm like, I'm happy to guide you in helping yourself, but you really have to be your own advocate. And that's true of neurotypicals too, by the way. That's just a human thing. You have to advocate for yourself for the things that you need, no matter what situation, whatever that you are in. That is your responsibility to advocate for yourself. So I'll give
Yeah.
like the super high clip of my life. So I'm an eldest daughter, and I grew up in a super conservative environment, and I wasn't allowed to be special. I was told my role as a woman was to sit in the back, make sure I'm not seen, heard, or known. And that was always like, that doesn't feel right. But that's the way that I was raised in that super environment, right? I'm an elder millennial, whatever the hell that means. So when I was a kid, I was labeled as the talented and gifted kid. Yeah, I really hate that phrase. But I was a talented and gifted kid, right? I was super smart. Nobody knew what to do with me. I didn't have the social skills to skip a grade, but I had the academic skills to skip like four, and nobody really knew what to do with me. So I kind of just got thrown in. But then they said, okay, we created this talented and gifted program, and we're going to have you take the test so you can enter this special program with these special things. And I was like, I don't want to be fucking special, y'all. Like, I just want to be me. And so I failed the test on purpose. And I genuinely believe that's where my test anxiety in life started, was that concept that I had to
Yeah.
pass a test to be special. And I was like, I don't want to be special.
Yeah.
And so kind of going through life with figuring, and all these teachers who were like, you have no social skills whatsoever. We have absolutely no idea what to do with you, but God bless, are you smart? And yeah, I just don't know what to do with you. And now as I've gotten older, I've looked at that and gone, I can take that experience I had as a child, all those classmates that I had, well, now they're managers, right? Because we're all old now, or at least people think we are, right? We're older now, and all those people are now in leadership. And now that I know the things I know about myself, now I have the opportunity to help teach those people of like, no, I wasn't just the weird, socially awkward kid that nobody knew what to do with. My brain just works a little differently. And here's how we can work together. Again, knowing myself and being able to ask for the things that I need, but also helping leaders understand that this is what Lyndsey's asking for. But Randy may need something else,
Yeah.
and Stacy may need something different, and Mark may need a fourth thing. And so you can't just assume that because Lyndsey said she needs this, that that's what all neurodivergents need.
And so many people think of things like ADHD and autism as having like a specific look to them. Like, especially like, I mean, the ADHD, like the look is generally the 6-year-old boy who's running circles in the classroom and not able to sit still. For me, it was not being able to stop talking, always ruminating on thoughts, always kind of thinking of other things and getting distracted. And so that never, like, nobody noticed that. Well, they noticed the talk a lot. That was on, like, every report card, because didn't teachers just, like, all of our teachers were our first bullies, I swear. Stupid report cards. But, like, so much of that was, like, so internalized, and then we take all of that, and then we start masking it, and then masking it, we just, like, don't learn anything more about what we need because we're too busy trying to pretend that we are normal, typical. And that's so hard. So what kind of advice do you give to people when it starts with advocating for themselves and for talking about their chronic illness and or neurodivergence?
Yeah, so I think the big one that I encourage people, especially entrepreneurs, I'm going to go the entrepreneurial route first, is one of the best gifts you have is your contract. So as an entrepreneur, everyone should have a contract with everybody. Full stop. Okay. Everybody should have a contract in any business agreement that you have. And your contract actually gives you the ability to take what you know about yourself and put it in writing. So my contract explicitly says these are my business hours. Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 Arizona time, Friday, 9 to 1 Arizona time. My turnaround time is 1 to 2 business days within my business hours. Why is my turnaround time 1 to 2 business days? So if I'm having a super autistic day one day and my brain is just not there, I don't have to give less of myself to a client because I've given myself in my contract the opportunity to step away for the day.
That's so smart.
And so contracts are huge. In the link, my link tree is included with this podcast video. On my link tree, there is a link for contracts. So if you don't have a contract in your business today, you can click the one that says attorney generated contracts. My business attorney, Sarah Gilliland with Rising Brand Legal, is amazing. She actually has a contract shop where you can go buy attorney drafted and supported contracts. And it has a video with it that tells you how to fill it out. So it gives you all the directions. You're welcome to use that for your business, for whatever business you have. She has a ton of options out there for all kinds of things. If you don't have like your terms and conditions for your website, for example, those are her freebies on there. So you can grab those and get those added to your website. But your contract as an entrepreneur is one of the best ways that you have to advocate for yourself. Know what you are and get your boundaries right there in your contract.
You don't even have to say specifically because I am. You just say these are my hours, and there's nothing wrong with setting those as your hours and staying strict on those things.
Yeah.
That's
And it's
so
one of
important.
the nice things is most people, one of the hardest things they have with boundaries is they have a hard time going back and saying, I need you to support me. Well, here's the great thing about a contract. You don't ever have to feel bad about saying that because you never have to actually say that.
Yeah,
Per my contract,
yeah.
insert boundary they violated. Boom. Done.
The
It is
rules of
super
working with
easy.
me and my business.
And here it is. It's super, super easy. And if you have a business relationship now that doesn't have a contract, write one now and get it done. The best time to install your boundaries with a client is at the time that you sign your contract. The second best time is right now. So use your contract to let it help you There's almost all contracts, all the ones that are out on that website, all have an ability to do updates, and it gives directions on how updates are done and how you both agree on them. So you can update it if something happens. 100% use them and enforce them, because your boundaries are only as good as you're willing to stand by them. So if I go out and tell my clients, okay, my business hours are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4, and I'm sending emails at 7 p.m., that may be when my neurospicy brain was able to mellow out enough to sit down and do the things. This is why God created delayed send, right? Like these little tools that are out there, delayed send is one of the greatest creations of all time. Use it and use it a lot. So just because I'm sitting down at 7 p.m., I can set it for delayed send and it sends at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning or night, whatever the business hours are. So it stays in my business hours, even if I'm working outside of them.
That's really smart. I work outside my business hours all the time, and I've had that come up before. People are like, "Well, you were sending emails, like, why weren't you answering?" I was like, "Because I wasn't in my business hours," but, like, it was while I was working. My business hours are for the people. When I work, might not necessarily be, and that's okay. That's
It
when
is.
I'm doing my thing. And I
Yeah.
think oh my gosh, what was I gonna say? Um in that, it is so important too to, like, not only know what your boundaries and times and hours and stuff like that is, but one of the things, like, one of the tips that I always give people is, overestimate as much as possible. Like, within, reason, obviously, you can't tell them you might get back to them in a month. They're probably not gonna be down for that, but, like, if you think it might take you a couple days, but things could happen, give yourself a week. Tell them you'll get back to them within a week. And then, if things happen, you don't have to like overstress and get overwhelmed. And if you get it done early, you can deliver early and nobody's going to complain about that. They're just going to be more excited.
Yeah. It's amazing how many, when you ask for something, right? Hey, I need a week to get this taken care of for you the right way. I've never had somebody tell me no because they want it done the right way. And so they're willing to wait and understand. I think it's also important to, especially in the entrepreneurial space, to every so often we have that client, we have to remind that they're not our only client.
Yeah.
And that's also, again, part of why your contract has things like turnaround times and business hours. It gives you that ability. And if you have to have that conversation, as much as it might terrify you, the best thing you can do to advocate for yourself is to speak up for yourself in that moment and be like, hey, just as a reminder, we have some things in our contract that we need to make sure that we follow. And in order to remain a contractor, right? So my HR brain's going to kick in for a second, but in order to remain a contractor, I can't just have one client. I have to have multiple clients. And so I need you to be patient and understand that everything is handled and we prioritize all of our clients at the same time. So however that conversation feels natural to you, but you have to have the conversation. Like, you can't just sit there and be like, okay, yes, sir, I'll do what you want, and then be fucking freaking out in your head because you're ADHD or your autism or your dyslexia or whatever, or all of those things, if that happens to be you, right? Like, whatever your situation is not low key, is like full blown fucking panicking in the back because you didn't advocate for yourself. Well, now not only are you probably not going to deliver the quality product to the client that you could have had you enforce your boundaries, but it's also going to take you like 3 weeks to recover from that because you're going to keep playing it over to your head and you're going to be really mad at yourself that you didn't advocate for yourself.
And I think, like, that brings us to another big problem that we all have in common, or at least a lot of us do. So many of us are people pleasers, and we really want to jump and meet expectations, but, like, at the same time, we usually end up setting ourselves up for failure by doing that. So stepping away, and, like, it is a very difficult thing to do. I can't say it's easy, but stepping away from that people-pleasing tendency to, "I need to be the person I'm pleasing in this moment," super huge.
Yeah, let me reframe the people pleasing idea. So we a lot of times we think that in order to people please, we have to say yes to the first thing that they offer. But what if the real way that we pleased somebody was giving them what they don't know that they need, but we know that they need? Right? So maybe that people pleaser in you, you can still please people by enforcing your boundaries, because when you're enforcing your boundaries, you're giving the best version of yourself to the other person, and that is going to make them happy. So hopefully that little reframe for those of us that are struggling people pleasers will help a little bit, that like you actually are pleasing them by enforcing your boundaries because you're going to give them the best version of yourself.
That's such a good way to think about it. I do love that. So beyond the entrepreneurial side of it, for those of us who don't have contracts or we're working with other people, how are we advocating for ourselves and setting those boundaries with bosses, if
Yeah.
that has to be?
Honestly, it's kind of the same way. In corporate, we don't have contracts, but we do have email. And at the end of it, I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to pretend to be an attorney. But one of the things that Sarah, my attorney, tells me all the time is that things in writing are always better than things that are not.
Smart.
You just because, and I tell people in corporate, right? My clients are corporate clients, right? I'm a business to business company, so I work with corporate clients, and I tell every single manager, anytime you have a conversation with somebody about anything, whether you're a manager or you're not, doesn't matter. You can use this anyway. After that conversation, sit down at your desk, pull up your email. Hey, thanks for chatting with me today. To make sure we're on the same page, here are the things that I took that here are the things we talked about and the things I took away from this conversation. Write it all down, right? This is what we talked about. This is what we agreed on. This is the next steps that we agreed on. If there were no next steps agreed on, propose what the next steps are, right? Get it all in writing. It's great because I don't know about you, but even my autistic brain that like hyper focuses and photographic memory and all that weird shit, I forget details sometimes. And so I even love having that email, even if I'm not the manager that's writing it. Maybe I'm the employee or the other person who's writing it. It just helps my brain because it just happened. So here, let me write it down while it's fresh in my brain. And then we have this to go back to. So if there's a misunderstanding later and we have a moment and I need to reinforce my boundaries, well, I've never heard of that before. It was like, yeah, right. And that's, you
Per
obviously have
our
to,
last email.
right. Never use the word per the attached email. Okay, that's going to land you in my office, but or my virtual office, I guess I should say, since I'm not on site. But the same concepts are still there to be like, thank you for listening. This is something that we talked about when we met last time. It is in the follow-up email that I gave you. How can I help you help me be successful? Right? And that's a phrase that I like a lot, especially with managers that you get the impression don't really give a shit. How can I help you help me? Right? And you're opening that space to them. You're giving them the open opportunity for them to tell you what they need. Right? You're telling them what you need. Okay, this is what I need. Now they can tell you, here's what I need from you to help me get right. And you partner together to get where you want to go. That is beautiful. And that's exactly what we're looking for. And that's how we change our relationship with work, right? When we change our relationship with the people, particularly with our manager, and we stop saying yes to every fucking little thing we get asked to do if it doesn't make sense, that's how we get rid of laying in bed at night going, God, I fucked all that up. And how we get away from waking up in the morning in a full fucking panic and our anxiety is already at a 10 because we're dreading going to work because we're going to have to deal with all these things. That's how we get past those things is we advocate for ourselves. We know ourselves, we advocate for ourselves, we communicate what we need, and we partner with those that are going to help us be successful. And in those 4 things, that's how we get rid of that feeling.
Yes. I think, like, and you said communication in there, and that's another big one, especially for those of us with the touch of the tism and we're not very good at communicating. My husband and I have this problem a lot. Like, I will assume he knows, but he, within his own neurodivergent brain, needs to have like more of a full picture. And so, like, I'm like, we're making dinner. Can you help me? And he's like, yes. But he doesn't like have a full idea of like what that end thing is. And he's like, I just need you to give me more information. And like, sometimes we end up like butting heads because of our differing neurodivergence and that. How do you tell people to like when somebody needs something explained, like more detail, more specifics, rather than their boss just saying go do it? How do you help them explain that?
Yeah. And some of it is going to come down to the relationship, right? So if this is a boss that's only been your boss for 2 weeks, right, you're going to probably approach it one way. If this person's been your boss for 2 years, you're probably going to approach it a little different, right? But it does come down to thank you for trusting me to go do the work, right? I don't want to tell you to inflate their confidence, but you are acknowledging,
They do love
right?
that.
Some of them do, some of them don't, right? Depends on the person. But you are acknowledging that they've asked you to do something and you're thank you for asking me, right? Instead of they didn't make an assumption. They didn't assume that you knew you were supposed to do the thing. So we're thanking them for the first communication of telling us that we're doing something. And then we ask, can I have some more context? I don't like the word details here because that word for some reason just triggers people. But can I have some more context behind the ask so I can make sure that I deliver what you need the first time?
I need
Sometimes
like
it's just
someone
changing
like
words.
you just like in my back pocket all the time whenever I have to have professional conversations. I'll be honest, I am so not good at it. Um,
It's a skill and it
it's
takes practice.
it
It
does
takes
for sure.
practice. And sometimes one of the biggest things I will encourage you, right? All of us neurodivergents we're very expressive through our body language. Almost all of us, even those of us with autism, like myself. We are expressive through our body language and through our eyes. And so when you say a word, like, so maybe you said detail and you see this, like, right, they get a little stiff, just reword it in the moment. Stop the sentence, start over, change the word detail to context. There's nothing wrong with using and trying your best, and it does take practice. Okay. I'm 41 years old. It took me 41 years to fucking figure this out. Okay. So you're not behind. It takes practice. But the more you do it, you start to learn, stop your sentence, start over, change the word when you saw them tense up, pick a different one. Everybody's got a little different word. Like, so one of the big ones I find is using context versus details, especially in a corporate space. That one tends to help a lot more because it's not as combative. It's not like you didn't give me enough.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just asking for getting build me a bigger boat, right?
Yeah.
I actually had a manager that's what I used to tell him. I used to say, "You gave me a kayak. Can we work together to build a bigger boat?
I like
Can you
that.
give me some more?" That was the way his brain worked. So it's also, as you build relationships with people, and yes, that is hard for those of us that are neurodivergent, especially those of us on the spectrum. It is hard for us to build relationships. It doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah.
And so as you get to know somebody a little bit, you start to learn some of the little things, right? That's one of our super abilities being neurodivergent, as many of us notice the little details in people. Use that to your advantage, right? Notice those little details and go, oh, okay. Maybe you watch how they interact with somebody else, or you're watching this or that, how they interact with you. How do they interact with their boss? How do they interact with your peers? How do they interact with their peers? Just watching, right? People watching. It's one of my favorite things to do. Just watching people and watching how they interact with others and go, I see little things. Okay, I'm going to take those little things and I'm going to use those little things that I saw.
So I love that. And I think like I mean many of us are really good people watchers because that is how we learn to mask and that's how we learn to act the way people want you to and expect you to. But like once you realize that that's what you're doing, once you know you're masking and everything, I have found it to be a lot easier to take that information I've learned and actually like put it to good use in those social conversations and not just like I'm not just taking them in for me now. Now I'm making, points on like, "Oh, okay, well, like now I can see this in another person." And I might not always be great at noticing for sure. I've definitely been tripped up several times because I didn't notice that other people were upset or uncomfortable or whatever. The own that is my own neurodivergent issues. And having to find the ways to make those adjustments is definitely a huge thing in, like, making business work.
Yeah. And also giving yourself a little grace, right? So,
Yeah.
like many other neurospices, right? After a conversation, I replay it in my brain for like the next hour, right? And I could have done this and I could have done that. And one of the things I've had to teach myself is that I got to stop doing that because I didn't know what I didn't know in the moment. And yes, hindsight is always 2020. We're always going to learn things in every interaction we have with someone. We're always going to learn things. And we take that into the next conversation, but we can't beat our like if we have a conversation with somebody and it just bombs. It just does not work out. You didn't fail, you learned. And you take what you learned and you take it into the next one, right?
As a community tend to be so hard on ourselves. It's so disheartening when I hear, like, my community and, like, the people in my club and stuff, and they're like, "Well, how are we dealing with, like, imposter syndrome?" Or, "How are we dealing with, like, feeling bad because we can't do the thing?" And I'm like, "Honestly, y'all are gonna hate my answer to this, but, like, the only answer is you gotta just stop. You gotta just stop. You gotta realize that that is a feeling that is not serving you. It's not going to help you in any way. You have to not feel that. And it's, I mean, easier said than done, obviously. I have found just like convincing myself that I just tell myself, would a rich white man do this with full ass confidence? Yeah. Yeah, he probably would. There's no reason why I cannot.
I love that.
My
The other
men
one I've
don't love
taught,
this analogy, but they also know it's true.
yeah, just because you don't
'Cause
love it
I know
doesn't
how
mean it
many
ain't true.
times have we had the conversation with a guy who thought he could beat up a gorilla, you know? Whole ass confidence. I just tried
Yeah,
to bring that into
yeah. My grandpa, when I was little, my grandpa taught me a phrase that I've used a lot, and hopefully it'll help somebody else. He told me, Lindsay, the first time something goes the way you didn't plan, it's a lesson. The second time, it's a mistake.
Yeah, that's
And that
good.
has helped me a lot with process and kind of letting some stuff go to be like, that was a first time. Like, I didn't know what I didn't know. There's no way I could have known that. Now I've learned. And as long as I take that lesson and I apply it the next time, I didn't make a mistake. I didn't do anything wrong. I simply learned a lesson. Learning is a lifelong experience, and it should be. I actually enjoy that. I think it's fun to
Love
continue to
that
learn
part.
things, right? So reframe it in your brain as a learning moment, not as a failure, because you didn't fail. You didn't know. You learned. and now you
That's
take it with you.
definitely a mindset shift I've made for myself that, like, I didn't know what I didn't know, that line right there has saved my mental state so many times because it cannot be your failing for not knowing what you don't know that you need to know. That's not on
Yep.
you.
Yeah. Nobody knows
Unless there
everything
was,
and there's
like,
no
a
expectation
full-on
you do.
chance that you probably should have studied and or read the, manual earlier. That's not on you. That's not
The
your
only thing
mistake.
the only thing that anybody should ever know going into anything is that murder is wrong. Other than that, it's all a learning curve. Okay? So as long as you didn't kill anybody, right? I tell business owners this all the time. Outside of murder, you can always choose again. Murder is the only time we don't get to choose again, so please don't do that. Outside of that, if you made a decision that didn't work out, you can always choose again. Let it go.
No, we shouldn't say that online. Um,
No, it's not a good idea. Karma does a way better job than you're ever going to do on the revenge tour, just for the record. I have numerous examples of this in my life. I don't do revenge tours anymore. I let Karma, she is such a fucking hoe, and I just let her do her damn thing. And she does way better than I ever could have done on my own.
take care.
Handled, handled, and then some.
Yes, absolutely. We need her to get to work on some people. I'm sure she's
She
on
will.
it. She's on it.
She'll do it. Her timing is better than ours too, right? Because we want a
And she works
revenge
in
tour like right
mysterious
now.
ways.
Wait, so I had a manager who fucked me over once, and it didn't work out. Fucking 2 years later, right? I find out through the grapevine. 2 years later, Karma had her moment, and it was something way better, right? I wasn't gonna wait 2 years to do it, but she waited 2 years to do it, and let me tell you, it came back around in spades. So just let Karma do her thing. You can always choose again, and it's fine.
I do love that. That's so great. In your experience, what would you say is some of the hardest boundaries we have to set?
Yeah, the
Like
hardest
time,
ones are with
time and all of that, those are fairly like we can put them into a contract. What's the hardest one to get past?
yeah, the use of language is usually the hardest one, right? So, um, I'll give an example. I have a member of my family who shall go unnamed, who says some incredibly inappropriate things, right? Things that we would use like racist and things like that to describe. And it's like, I don't want to hear that. And they go, "You're my family. I'm just saying it here. I don't go say it out there." Yeah, I don't want to hear it anyway. Right? It's in language use, and particularly knowing those of us that, especially on the spectrum, we have words that we know are trigger words for us, words that just don't sit well with us. We don't like them. It just gives us the ultimate ick, but we're not really great about telling you, hey, I don't like that word. Hey, that word, pick it up, right? Just like details is a word for a lot of people, right? And I'm telling you, use context, right? We have our own words, and it takes time for us to learn what those words are. And we learn them and we're like, okay, that's my word. And then we kind of stop. And it's like, okay, now you figured out your word. Congratulations. Step one is done. Now
Yeah,
we need to communicate the word that we don't like. And we need to help people understand why that word doesn't work for us. And it's a big and, we need to help give them another word that does. We can't expect them to be a walking thesaurus that has 180 different words for the one word that we don't like. So we need to help them by telling them the word we don't like and giving them another word that doesn't bother us that they can use in its place. And I find language to be the hardest one because we're good at the first step and we're fucking terrified to talk about it. Because we're like, I don't want to say my own trigger word. Yes, but I need to. I need to. So that those, and particularly those I spend the most amount of time around, the ones that are most likely to trigger me, right? Some one random dude, if I'm visiting a client's office that I'm never going to see again who uses it, yeah, I can probably in one ear and out the other on that one. But in my own family, in my friend group, my employees that work for me, right? In those environments and the people that you routinely see, you have, just like we talked about before, you have to advocate for yourself. Language is a moment you have to advocate for yourself. And if that word doesn't work for you, you need to share it. And you need to help people to know, because again, they don't know what they don't know. So if you don't tell them that the word caress makes you scream, I have a friend like that, or that the word moist drives you absolutely crazy, okay, you got to give them another word to use. A, you got to tell them, B, you got to give them another word to use. Because otherwise they're going to sit there and go, nay, and that cake was really, oh, fuck. How do I describe this in a way that actually works for you? Then it becomes this awkward moment, and then you feel awkward because now they're awkward, and everybody's awkward turtle, and no one enjoys it. And so, language, I think, is a huge one. I think the second one that's really hard, because there's always one in every group, is that asshat that refuses to accept your boundary.
That was actually gonna be my next question is, like, so when you said, like, because there's, like, the specific words and then there's, like, the general topics, and I'm like, "Hey, could we, like, not have that conversation? I don't feel comfortable having this conversation." I mean, usually it's something that I want to stand up for, but I don't wanna start the fight in the particular professional and or family setting that we are in. Just, "Can you not?" And they go, "Oh, but why? You're so sensitive. Why are you being so sensitive? It's just a joke."
Yeah, and that's in that moment where when we said at the beginning, there comes a point where we have to tell you to fuck off. The asshat is
Bleh.
the moment when we say to fuck off. We never lead with our fuck off, right? We lead with nice, friendly, hey, let's work together so that we're all comfortable in this environment. And the asshat that refuses to do it gets the great big old fuck you, right? And it's okay. It's okay if you needed permission. Here's your permission slip. I'm handing you your permission slip. To when it comes time, if you need to tell somebody to fuck off, do it. Remove yourself from the room, walk out, never talk to that person again, cut them off, right? Whatever you need to do. But once you have made your boundary clear, you made it clear, you enforced it at least once, and they still can't respect it, then you've reserved the right for all of those meltdown, whatever label they want to give you. Not that that's ever happened to me. But all those things that, yeah, you did the right thing, and now you're in that space where those things are okay. Do what you got to do.
Like, yeah, I mean, usually, as sensitive people tend to, like, worry so much about the consequence. And in that, I find that we really struggle with doling out that consequence. And sometimes that consequence is just that you lose access to me. Sometimes that consequence is I'm going to tell you right the fuck off. And I might do it very loudly and in front of other people. Do you feel like having that conversation? Because we can. Like, and I know that this is like all of this is so much easier said than done. And so many people, like, in the moment really struggle with it. But it has to be done. It's the only way we're gonna make the changes.
Yeah. And for those that this helps, I understand for some of you, you're going to be like, Lyndsey, that ain't it. And that's okay. But for those it does help, right? For every boundary that you enforce, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping all the other neurospices too.
I always try to think of that.
So in that, if you are somebody who is a greater good kind of human, right? I'm one of those. I'm a greater good kind of human. If you're a greater good kind of human and you're like, this terrifies me, instead of making it about you, think about the greater good. Be like, by standing up in this moment, I'm
Yeah.
not just helping myself, I'm helping all the other neurospices, neurodivergence, ADHD, autism, dyslexia, right? There's like 35 things that go under that whatever neurodivergent label, but I'm helping all of my other people who are like me be able to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
Do the
And
scary
hopefully
thing.
this person does learn a thing and then they don't say it again. I've I am the type of person that will pick a fight, so that somebody else doesn't have to. I've definitely picked a lot of those fights and, like, made people feel really shitty about the things that they've said, just so that they don't by chance say it to somebody who it might really, really hurt. Like, if it's something that I am not particularly sensitive about and I can stand up for that, I will take that fight. I will do it because if that means that that person is not gonna go hurt somebody else, worth it, 100%. Please hate me instead.
Yeah. One of the things I learned to let go of a long time ago is that I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. I wasn't created to be for everybody, and that's okay. And there are going to be people in life who I am going to have to exit in my space. I am going to have to say that you are no longer welcome in this space. And in doing so, I am protecting myself, but I'm also protecting others. And I'm creating the environment that allows me to keep going and doing the thing that I was put here to do, right? To fulfill my
Yeah.
purpose. I will
That's a
give a
conversation I have in marketing a lot. The, like, you're not for everyone. You can't be for everyone. If you're
you don't
trying to
want to be.
please everyone, you're probably not really pleasing anybody.
Laced yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, definitely you're gonna feel off with it. So, like, if it comes down to, like, either your boundaries or your messaging and your marketing, you have to just be you. And knowing you, come back full circle in our conversation here, knowing you and knowing all of these things about yourself, so important. This is why I'm a huge proponent of self-diagnosis, especially because the lack of access everywhere is huge and the lack of like understanding is huge by most professionals. So we need to be our own professionals. We need to like take that on. And you were saying too at the beginning, like, you're responsible for your own actions and everything like that, which also comes down to we're also responsible for our own care. And we can't put that on, our doctors, our therapists, or whoever didn't fix this for us. As much as we would love them to, because they say that that's their job, and I think that that's what we're paying them to do, we can't expect them to do it. So, our body, our life, our brain, we need to be the most protective of it and set those boundaries.
Yeah. And I know like I couldn't get a doctor to do my formal diagnosis for high functioning autism. They refuse to do. I say we only diagnose that in children. We don't diagnose it in adults. And I'm like, well, I can do my own homework and I know myself and I can figure it out. And I can be my own advocate. But I also think, keep in mind, right? We talk about this in the HR circles a lot as we look at designing the future of work, right? With Gen Z entering the workforce, over 50%, 50, so over half of employees in the workforce by 2030 will identify as neurodivergent. Over half. Y'all, we ain't the
Not
minority.
because it's happening more lately, but because it's being recognized and diagnosed more.
Yes,
Throw
because we
that
are
in for
open to
anybody
the
who wants to say, because there's something in the water.
herd.
There
Yeah,
might be.
no,
But
we're just open to the conversation and we're open and willing. I'm actually working on a book that I'm hoping to release later this year about how different generations show up at work. And one of the big things is that as you look through, right, especially when you start looking through like the HR-ish lens, like I love Gen Z, right? Everybody talks about how lazy they are. I fucking love Gen Z. They are my favorites. Why? Because all the things that I've wanted to do and I keep saying I'm going to do, they're actually fucking doing.
yeah,
And it's
they're not
just
taking shit.
as you look down the generations, that is one of the biggest things you see is what the previous generation wanted, the next generation goes after. And then what that
Everything that drove
generation
us
wanted,
millennials out and
and
just
it works its way down.
overburdened us.
But we're far more open to talking, right? My parents, or I should say my parents are boomers, but just after my parents, right? They wanted to see a therapist and they wanted to talk about mental health and they wanted to talk about all the things going through their head, but nobody could do that. And us millennials are like, fuck it, I love my therapist. I'll post it all over Facebook about how great my therapist is. I'll even give you their phone number. Anybody need it? I'll post it in the group for 10,000 people to see. My therapist is amazing.
Therapy, and that's awesome. Like,
Right. Like
just
we have no issue talking about it. And then what does the next generation do with it? The next generation now says, not only do I love my therapist and I love seeing them every week and they help me immensely, now I'm going to advocate for myself and what I've learned in therapy. And I'm going to advocate for that in my personal life, in my professional life, and otherwise. It's great to see those things. I love it. I am here for all of it. But know that as if you're one of those people in the people pleasing stage, I don't want to talk about it freight. We are not the minority anymore. We are now the majority, and it is perfectly safe to step up and be who you are and take that mask off and be your authentic self. You were designed that way for a reason. It is your superpower. Go use it.
I've heard it's come up several times in this podcast with different people saying, we are the next, like, we are the change. that we're gonna see, like the neurodivergence and the chronically ill people, we're gonna make those changes that like businesses really need to see. And a lot of us have ducked out and started a thing for ourselves now, and that's gonna be a big part of it. But with what we're learning and with what we're doing, I think that that's gonna make a huge change in the industries and the way corporate works. It
Yeah.
has to, it has to, like, so many of these businesses are just, like, falling apart and failing because they're not accommodating their staff. They're not treating them like people, they're not treating them with dignity, and, like, you can't do that anymore. We don't have the tolerance for it. We are all way too fucking tired for it. Way
Yeah,
too
and I mean, we could probably do an entire second on the chronically ill piece and what that looks like in the workplace because that happens to be a bit of a soapbox subject for me. But same thing, I'm also a migraine sufferer. I've battled them since college, and so there are days where yeah, I would have to sit at the computer with my sunglasses on in the building and be like, Lindsay, what the fuck are you doing? And it was really tempting to run and be like, none of your fucking business, right? Because that's what I initially wanted to say, but what was better serving to me was to say, I battle migraines. I happen to be having one at the moment. And in order to be able to get anything done today, I'm going to need to sit here with these sunglasses on.
yeah,
Right.
and be
That
left
serves
alone
me
for
better.
it.
Yeah. And please stop talking to me. But also,
Yeah.
right, like I'm advocating for myself by sharing my situation. And I'm not just telling you to fuck off. I'm sharing my situation without all the details and all the things that are none of their business. Yeah, we left all that out, kept it high level. But yeah, advocate for yourself. Talk to your HR departments for those in the chronically ill space. If you have more than 15 employees in the United States, that's the magic number is 15. Um, they are legally required to support you with your chronic illness. It's a legal requirement. And if they don't, call your local employment attorney. Believe me, they would love to talk to you. But 15 is the magic number. Like, so we could probably do a whole second one on that. If you're interested in that, drop a comment on here. Maybe tell us if you're interested in a different one on that subject.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's a lot of ways to advocate for yourself in the chronically ill space too. I will throw in here. So I talked a lot about finding my purpose, right? And how it scares the shit out of me. I highly recommend. There's a guy named Michael Burnoff. He lives here in Scottsdale. He does twice a year. He does a program called Core Live. And it's about the idea of how you communicate with yourself, because how you communicate with yourself is how you communicate with others, right? The way you talk to yourself is the same way that you're going to talk to others. And so if you're like me and you spent a long time getting told you're too rough, you're too mean, you're too direct, you're too much, oh, hate that one. You're too whatever. One of the things that Michael helped me learn is that it wasn't that I was too whatever to everybody else. I was too to myself.
Yeah.
And it reflected in how I communicated with others. So if that's something that you're interested in, also they talk a lot about finding your purpose in there as well, right? How you communicate with yourself when you're nicer to yourself. Yourself will be a little more willing to show you what you were put on this earth to do. And then you can use that to align your future and determine what you want to do. Again, it's called Core Live. It's in April and October of each year in Scottsdale. You can
Nice.
find it by Googling it. But highly recommend that. That's part of what really helped me find it. It is a space that is hard for neurodivergence. I will be honest. It's very loud, lots of lights. Bring your earplugs and sunglasses if you need to. There's no judgment in that space if you need to use those things. But it is intended, so spoiler alert here, Michael, don't kill me, but it is intended to overwhelm your nervous system. That is actually the goal. Because when your nervous system gets overwhelmed, you stop fighting so much and your brain is a little more open to receiving things. And so it is intended to overwhelm. It is intended to be a lot, especially for us neurodivergents. Like I said, there's no judgment. Sunglasses or earplugs, totally fine. It is a hard experience. You're going to need at least 2 days afterwards of recovery time before you're going to be able to have any form of a coherent conversation with anyone. But I highly recommend putting yourself through it once to get that opportunity to kind of see what happens when you let your fight turn off and see what's out there. And Michael doesn't know that I'm promoting his program, but I don't get paid for it. I promise it's not an affiliate kind of thing, but it's super cool. And it's something that helped me as a neurodivergent I really found my voice in that of being like, okay, now I can go talk about this with other people. It helped a lot.
Okay. And you seem to have a lot of confidence, so obviously it is working. So that's great. This
Yeah.
has been such an amazing conversation, and I feel like a lot of this is gonna help a lot of people, and I would definitely love to do some more conversations like this. Don't choke and die there.
I know. Sorry. Moment.
You tell everyone where they can find you.
Yes. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all under North Star HR or North Star HRAZ, depending on the platform. Also on LinkedIn, you can find me under my name. Make sure you spell it correctly. That's the hardest part. My socials are pretty active. You can always reach me through there. You can also, a lot of employees, especially on TikTok, will ask me questions about their corporate questions that they don't feel like they can ask their HR people. I'm happy to help where I can. I can't do a ton of it just with capacity, but where I can, I'm more than happy to help answer questions or at least guide you to who's the right person to ask your question to. That's what I do a lot of. Is just where do I direct this question to make sure that I can get the best advocacy for myself.
That's so fantastic. Lyndsey, thank you so much for being here and talking to me about boundaries and all of these things. These are such important conversations that I think we need to have a lot more often. Thank you so much. If anybody else wants to come share their stories, share their advice on how we function as chronically ill and neurodivergent people building a business, please, all of the links are down below to connect with me and or with Lyndsey. Come check them out, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Chronically Cozy Chats. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you are a chronically exhausted entrepreneur looking for a community and support, please follow the links and join the Chronically Cozy Creators Club on Discord, where you'll find others who understand and are there to help you grow. Thanks again and stay cozy.